talking to Chief Minister Alf Cannan, and it is fair to say you've had a busy day and I guess a busy weekend.
Yes. It's been a weekend of thought, of discussion, of consideration, and a weekend in which decisions have had to be made.
Those decisions, some might argue, could have come a bit sooner. Would that be fair?
So I think the first thing that I really ought to do, Phil, is just to pay tribute to the two ministers who have departed. I know other ministers have left over the tenure of this administration, but this is a difficult job. All the ministers have challenging portfolios in terms of the briefs and the legislation and the policies that they are pursuing. And both Alex Allinson and Michelle Hayward have applied themselves and worked incredibly hard. It is unfortunate, clearly, that we have got to a point where we have diverged on a number of issues, and I felt that we needed to take action to correct the course. But nevertheless, I have to recognise also their contribution, which I'm grateful for. Having made that decision now, it's important that we do pay attention to the issues that I've highlighted in the letters that have been brought out, in the statements that have been made by the new ministers. We will now seek to deal with those matters as quickly as possible and approach the budget perhaps with a slightly refined attitude.
And the question that I asked, and to be fair, you sidetracked yourself maybe a little on this. Should these decisions have been taken sooner? Because it's been obvious to anyone who's been witnessing the Council of Ministers in operation that you and the Treasury Minister had diverging views on many key issues.
Well, look, it's been a difficult balancing job, to get the right people in place during this administration. There have been one or two resignations which were not expected. I think if I go right back to David Ashford's resignation in 2022, that somewhat upset the rhythm and the sort of plan, I guess, that had been set out. My job is also not only to find the best people for the job, but also I've got a balancing act to make in terms of ensuring that I have a council that does represent the sort of makeup of votes that are likely to occur, particularly in the House of Keys. The other point I would make is I am not a dictator, and there have been many occasions when I have voted and that vote has not been in line with the majority of council. But timing is everything. We've got to a point where I think it is fair to say on a number of occasions, particularly recently, my vote and the minority vote in council has probably reflected overall the majority view, particularly in the House of Keys, when you look at the balance of voting and the minority vote that's taken place in the Keys. So eventually you get to a point when you add all these factors up and decide that a decision has to be made, and that decision has been made. I think it's been made, of course, quite close to the budget. It comes at a point where we're just setting out our final agenda for the year ahead. But hindsight is everything. You can speculate as much as you want. I have to make that judgment call, and that judgment call was made this weekend.
And you mentioned there the budget. 4 weeks tomorrow, the Treasury Minister, the new Treasury Minister, Chris Thomas, is due to stand up and deliver a budget speech. How, in 4 weeks, are you going to rewrite the budget?
Well, miracles can occur, but look, the balance, the mainstay of the budget clearly isn't going to be changed fundamentally. There was a core reason, one of the core reasons in terms of the appointment of Chris Thomas was to get to resolution with the minimum wage, to restore relations, I think, between a very aggravated and frustrated business community and the government, and give Tynwald a way through this. I think that acknowledged the pressures that the business community were under, but also saw some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of how we would relieve some of the pressures our people are under, whether they're low paid, medium pay, or whatever. There's a lot of people under a lot of pressure. We know that. So, fundamentally, we will be focusing on taxation, personal allowances as a fundamental part. There will also be a quick review in terms of the support that's being provided through to the economy more generally through Department for Enterprise. That will be our core focus. We'll then need to make any adjustments accordingly, because clearly if you raise personal allowances, you've got to find the balance on the other side of the balance sheet in terms of public spending. But we will do that. I'm sure we're positive and confident we can do that in the next week. And as it stands, the budget will remain on track.
Because effectively you do have to, because of the timings of briefings to members, printing budgets, all the rest of it, it really is about a week that you've got left in which you can make those significant changes in the budget.
Yes, but that's administration, and you can change administrative timescales. I know there's a bit of pressure, but fundamentally, this is about inputting figures onto spreadsheets, looking at the balance of payments and looking where you need to make the adjustments. As I said, fundamentally, of course, most of the budget is set. It won't be changed. We will be focusing now about putting money back into people's pockets, making sure that is substantial enough to give members of Tynwald confidence that voting through a slowdown in the minimum wage will be balanced out by giving not just, as I said, the low paid, but hard-working families across the pay scales in our island something of an incentive post-budget whereby they will have more money in their pocket. And of course, the upside of that is that some trust is placed, and in fact, naturally you would expect that money in many cases to filter back into the economy, whether that's in hospitality or through extra spending in other areas. So, certainly my time at Treasury Minister taught me a substantial rise in personal allowances, which I did on one occasion, despite the warnings from the officers that this was too much and we couldn't afford it. Actually, what the end result of that is, by 12 months later, we were delivering heightened tax receipts, and actually the budget was coming in completely as forecast. So there are ways to do this, and we can do it.
A number of commentators, or Tynwald members, I should say, have commented today with when asked Chris Thomas as Treasury Minister, what do you think? Well, that's a surprise. Why did you pick Chris Thomas?
Look, Chris Thomas is an intelligent man, right? He has a very good finance background. If you look at his CV and his qualifications and his degree, it's clear if you've listened to him that he understands and he gets it. And he, more than just the simple sort of economics, he has a better understanding. He also gets it when we look at what comes first. In terms of actually supporting the economy, supporting people. We need to do that because we've got to pay for public services. So you've got to get your priorities right. That's the first thing that you've got to look at, because if the economy isn't functioning, then we're just not going to function when it comes to delivery of public services. So, look, it's not a surprise to me. I think actually from the reaction that I've had, it's not been a surprise to other people, or at least the appointment has been well received. Chris has got a job to do. I'm sure he'll outline his plans, and I'm confident that he will bring the necessary skills and aptitude to make this budget both a success, but also to work in the next 6 to 9 months to put in place the confidence, or restore some of the confidence needed between the Treasury and business.
Michelle Hayward, it's fair to say, hit the ground running and was eager to grasp every thorny issue and try and deliver solutions. Was that ultimately her downfall, maybe trying too hard? Well, again,
I think there have been votes that I have made that have not supported the direction of travel. Nevertheless, the majority vote has gone through. I think, there has been clearly a lot of aggravation in the policies that the DOI have been pursuing over the last year or so, including the Local Government Amendment Bill, the rapid insertion of Clause 5, the failure to come, I think, to any sort of satisfactory agreement with the local authorities, and of course the 20-mile-an-hour rollout, which has gone far beyond its scope, I think, as far as many members of Tynwald are concerned, and many of them, including Onken MHKs, particularly, who've been subject to the most recent order, remain very upset at the way it's been undertaken. And I think for me, all these issues, 20-mile-an-hour rollouts, local government amendment bills, minimum wage, and when you are engaged in so many clashes with society across a broad range of elements of that society in such a way that almost you feel the government's pursuit of these objectives is just fundamentally damaging confidence in its reputation and its ability to work with people, then you have to take action. I've had to take action, Phil. The clear aim and stated ambition is to restore relationships, restore confidence, put in place now, particularly with the minimum wage and the budget, the right mechanisms for us to get every chance of economic growth, every chance to ease some of the pressures that so many people are facing, and to stop the fighting, and to move forward in a more measured and sensible manner.
Tim Krukle, obviously taking over from Michelle Haywood. Is this third time lucky with Tim?
I'm sure it is. Look, Tim Krukle again stepped down last year. There was no reason for him to do so. I mean, I think, I'd moved him from the DOI to accommodate Michelle Haywood because of a need to reshuffle. He's always been there for the island, and I would say about Tim Krukle, he's been willing to put his hand up. I know there's been some times when he's sort of had enough and thrown in the towel because he's had a longish political career, but he's been there. He's been incredibly loyal in terms of trying to support the government and move things forward properly. He's considered. He likes to ensure that everybody is heard appropriately, and I am totally confident that he will grip the issues that we've been talking about, move things forward successfully.
And then the final question, really, from me, you have critics, and some of them are in Tynwald. They will point to the fact that there are 2.5 Council of Ministers worth of ex-ministers during your tenure. Have you ever thought, and I'm guessing that some Tynwald members are going to push this question, have you ever thought that maybe it's actually the person in the Chief Minister's chair that's the problem?
Look, I make decisions. I work with what I'm given, and as you know, I've tried to accommodate views. If anything, I have probably been far too considerate and far too ready to sort of accede to consensus views, when actually I should have been putting my foot down. I probably should have been driving in a different direction, and perhaps, ideally, loading the council with all the people who I knew were just going to vote the right way. But that by itself probably would not have been enough for us to have moved forward in a sensible way. And as I said, part of the trick of running the political system that we do when you have so many independents, is trying to ensure that you've got some balance in the Council of Ministers so that you can reach across Tynwald. It's not a party system, Phil. It doesn't offer perhaps the attraction that one might have of loading a Council of Ministers with everybody who technically is completely signed up to your agenda. And that's the way that politics works over here. So people can think what they want. Of course, they're entitled to think along the lines that you've just suggested. But we had a vote of confidence last year. I'm committed to pushing things forward and delivering for the people of this island. And I've had to make tough decisions again. And so be it. That is it. And I'm confident that I've made the right decisions at the right time. As I say, we'll push it through now to a budget that will deliver for the people of this island. We've set out the framework about how that's going to be delivered. We'll sort out the row with business. We'll re-establish relationships. I'm sure put some confidence back in the fact that government is listening to people, whether that's local authorities, whether that's drivers and society being affected by 20-mile-an-hour zones, or whether it is business and people who are impacted by minimum wage. I want us to start listening, working together and finding the solutions that will bind us together as a society and take us forward, not drive us apart.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.